The smallest mistakes sometimes find the people we were always meant to meet. Rain tapped softly against the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse, while Chicago shimmered beneath a blanket of lights. It was nearly 10:30 at night. The city below never seemed to sleep. Neither did I. My name is Gabriel Moretti. Most people who knew that name lowered their voices when they said it. Some spoke with respect. Others with fear. Neither interested me anymore. I stood alone in a room large enough for 20 people and listened to the silence. The penthouse had 12 rooms. I only used one. A glass of untouched water rested on the kitchen counter. A stack of reports waited on the dining table. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the skyline. It should have been an ordinary night. Then my phone rang. I almost ignored it. Unknown number.
No cayera identificación.
At that hour, random calls usually meant problems. I let it ring twice. 3 times. 4. Something made me answer. Hello. Silence greeted me at first. Then I heard breathing. Small breathing. Nervous breathing. Mom. The voice belonged to a little girl. I straightened immediately. I think you have the wrong number, sweetheart. A pause followed. You are not my mommy. No, oh. More silence. Then a tiny sigh. I knew it. I should have ended the call. Most people would have. Instead, I found myself walking toward the window. Who were you trying to call? My mommy. Do you know her number? I thought I did. Her voice sounded disappointed. But I got one number wrong. I looked out across the rain-covered city. That happens. Another pause. You do not sound mad. The comment caught me off guard. Was somebody supposed to be mad? Sometimes grown-ups get mad when I make mistakes. Something about the honesty in her voice made the room feel different. Smaller somehow. More human. Everybody makes mistakes, I said. Even grown-ups. A tiny laugh reached my ear. It was the first time I had smiled all day. Really? Really? The little girl seemed to consider that information carefully. Then maybe my mommy will not be upset. I am sure she will not. Rain continued tapping. Against the glass. Somewhere below, sirens echoed faintly through the streets. What is your name? I asked. Lily. Nice to meet you, Lily. Nice to meet you too, mister. Her voice suddenly became quieter. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever get scared? The question surprised me. Nobody ever asked me that. Not employees. Not associates. Not business partners. Certainly not children. Sometimes. Me too. The answer came so softly I almost missed it. My smile faded. Why are you scared? Silence filled the line. I heard a television playing faintly somewhere near her. Then I heard what sounded like rain against another window. Because my mommy is late. My gaze drifted toward the clock on the wall. 10:32. How late? She said she would be home a long time ago. The nervousness in her voice returned. Stronger now. And I do not like being alone. Suddenly the wrong number no longer felt like a mistake. It felt like the beginning of something neither of us understood yet. Then Lily whispered 6 words that made me stop breathing for a second. Can you stay on the phone? Can you stay on the phone? The question lingered in the quiet penthouse long after Lily asked it. I looked out across the rain-covered skyline and realized something strange. For the first time that entire day, somebody needed me for something that had nothing to do with money, influence, or power. A little girl was simply afraid of being alone. Yes, I said. I can stay. The relief in her tiny sigh was immediate. Thank you. I walked away from the window and sat down on the couch. The city lights shimmered beyond the glass while thunder rolled faintly in the distance. Do you know when your mommy is coming home? She said after work. What does she do? She works at a bookstore. Lily sounded proud when she said it. She lets me help stack books sometimes. A smile touched my face. That sounds important. It is. Her confidence made me laugh softly. I am the best helper. I believe you. Another moment of silence followed. Not uncomfortable silence. The kind that settles naturally between people who are beginning to trust each other. I heard pages. Turning. What are you doing? I asked. Reading. At 10:30 at night? I cannot sleep. Why not? Because I keep listening for the door. The words landed harder than they should have. I leaned back against the couch. Has your mommy ever been this late before? Not this late. The nervousness returned. She always calls. I glanced toward my phone screen. Unknown number. No address. No last name. Just a frightened little girl somewhere in Chicago. Any reasonable person would have contacted emergency services and moved on. Instead, I found myself asking another question. Do you know your address? Mommy says I am not supposed to tell strangers. I almost smiled. Your mommy sounds smart. She is. Lily paused. But you do not feel like a stranger. The statement caught me completely off guard. Nobody had ever described me that way. Not in years. Maybe not ever. I stared at the city lights beyond the glass. That is very kind of you. You stayed. Her answer was simple, honest, and impossible to argue with. For several minutes we talked about small things. Her favorite books. Her favorite ice cream. The stray cat she wanted to adopt even though her mother kept saying no. Slowly the fear in her voice began to fade. Then I heard another sound. A stomach growling. Loud enough to reach the phone. Lily groaned dramatically. That was embarrassing. I laughed. Have you eaten dinner? Silence answered me. Lily. Maybe. That sounds like a no. I was waiting for mommy. I rubbed a hand across my face. What food is in the apartment? Cereal. Anything else? Peanut butter. Anything that does not come from a box? She thought about it. Peanut butter is in a jar. I laughed harder than I had in months. Lily giggled too. The sound echoed through the empty penthouse. Then something changed. The laughter faded. I heard her take a breath. Mister. Yes. Her voice became small again. What if mommy forgot? My smile disappeared instantly. Rain tapped against the windows. Thunder rolled somewhere far away. She did not forget. How do you know? I looked out at the city. Thousands of lights. Thousands of lives. Somewhere among them was a mother trying to get home to her daughter. Because people do not forget someone they love that much. Another pause. Then Lily whispered something that made my chest tighten. I hope you are right. Lily's words stayed with me after she said them. I hope you are right. The rain continued falling beyond the windows of my penthouse, while the city lights blurred against the glass. For some reason I found myself hoping I was right too. Tell me about your mommy, I said. The change in subject seemed to help. Lily immediately brightened. She is the nicest person in the world. That is a pretty big title. She deserves it. I smiled. What makes her so nice? Lily did not hesitate. She always reads one more chapter even when she is tired. She makes pancakes shaped like stars. She lets me pick the music in the car sometimes. Sometimes. Only when she is in a good mood. I laughed softly. That sounds fair. The little girl giggled. Then she continued telling stories. Tiny stories. Ordinary stories. Yet somehow they painted a picture more clearly than any photograph could. I could almost see Hannah Carter without ever meeting her. A hardworking mother rushing between responsibilities. A woman trying to give her daughter a good life. A woman who clearly loved her child more than anything. Your mommy sounds pretty special. She is. Lily's voice lowered. She works really hard. Something about the way she said it made me ask another question. How often are you alone? A brief silence followed. Not much. Then she corrected herself. Well, more lately. My expression tightened. Because of work? The bookstore needs help. I nodded even though she could not see me. The pieces were beginning to form a picture. Long hours. A single mother. A little girl trying to be brave. Outside thunder rolled again. Then suddenly I heard another sound. A loud crash somewhere near Lily. My body instantly straightened. Lily. I am okay. What happened? I dropped my cereal. Relief flooded through me. You scared me. Sorry. She sounded embarrassed. I was trying to carry the bowl and talk at the same time. I shook my head, smiling despite myself. That sounds ambitious. Mommy says I am ambitious. Another crash followed. And clumsy. I laughed. So did she. The sound echoed through the phone and filled the empty penthouse. For a moment, neither of us felt alone. Then another thought occurred to me. Lily Yes. Do you know your mommy's full name? Of course. What is it? Hannah Carter. The answer came naturally, innocently. She had no idea how important it was. My eyes narrowed slightly. Finally. A name. Not enough to find her immediately, but enough to start. Why? Lily asked. Just curious. That was not entirely true. While she continued talking about books in school and pancakes shaped like stars, I quietly picked up a second phone from the table beside me. A phone very few people knew existed. I sent a single message. Find Hannah Carter. Chicago. Bookstore employee.
Urgent.
The response arrived less than 30 seconds later. Working. I slipped the phone away before Lily noticed. Mister, she asked suddenly. Yes. You got quiet. I looked back toward the city lights. Just thinking. About what? I considered the question carefully. Then I answered honestly. About how your mommy is probably trying very hard to get home. Lily was silent for a moment. Then she whispered something that made my chest tighten. I hope somebody is helping her too. I hope somebody is helping her too. Lily's quiet words stayed with me after she said them. For a moment I looked out across the rain-covered skyline and wondered how many people in Chicago were trying to get home to someone they loved. Thousands probably. Maybe more. Yet only one of them mattered right now. Hannah Carter. Somewhere in the city, a mother was running late, and a 7-year-old girl was pretending not to be scared. My second phone vibrated softly on the table beside me. A message appeared on the screen. Located. I opened it immediately. Hannah Carter. 31 years old. Assistant manager at a small independent bookstore on the north side. Delayed due to a citywide transit shutdown caused by severe weather and mechanical issues. Currently attempting to reach home. I exhaled slowly. Relief came first. Then another realization. Hannah was safe. She just had no way to get home quickly. Mister? Lily asked. Are you still there? I am. Good. Her voice sounded sleepy now. The fear that had filled it earlier seemed smaller. Weaker. Can I tell you a secret? I smiled slightly. Sure. I think my mommy worries too much. I laughed softly. That sounds like something every child says. She checks the locks twice. Smart. She calls me 3 times if I stay with my friend Emma. Also smart. Lily groaned dramatically. See? Everybody always takes her side. Before I could answer, another vibration came from my phone. This time the message contained a number. Hannah Carter. Personal cell phone. I stared at it for several seconds. This was probably where a normal person would stop. A normal person would assume everything was fine and move on. The problem was that I had stopped being normal a very long time ago. Lily, I said gently, do you think your mommy would answer her phone right now? Probably. Why? Because she always answers when it is me. I looked at the number again. Then I made a decision. Stay with me for 1 minute. Okay. I ended the secondary call and dialed Hannah's number. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. Finally someone answered. Lily. The relief in the woman's voice was immediate. Powerful. Thank God. You are not speaking to Lily. Silence followed. Who is this? Her tone changed instantly. Protective. Alert. My name is Gabriel. Why do you have my daughter's phone? I do not. Another pause. Then how do you know my daughter? I walked toward the window. Rain continued sliding down the glass. Because she accidentally called the wrong number tonight. Silence. Then confusion. What? She called me by mistake. Hannah exhaled sharply. Oh my God. The exhaustion in her voice was impossible to miss. Is she okay? She is fine. Can I talk to her? Of course. Relief flooded through the line. Pure relief. The kind only a parent could feel. I merged the calls together. Mommy. Lily's voice exploded with excitement. Mommy. Sweetheart. Hannah sounded seconds away from tears. I am so sorry. Are you okay? I am okay. When are you coming home? The answer took too long. Just a second. But I noticed it. So did Lily. Finally Hannah spoke. I am trying. The fear returned immediately. You are still not home? Rain tapped against the windows. The city hummed below. And for the first time all night, I heard worry in Hannah Carter's voice that matched the worry her daughter had been carrying for hours. For several seconds nobody spoke. The three-way call connected us across different parts of the city. A little girl sitting alone in an apartment. A mother trying desperately to get home. And me standing in a penthouse I suddenly wanted to leave. Mommy, Lily asked quietly. How much longer? Hannah hesitated again. I do not know, sweetheart. The answer hurt because it was honest. I could hear traffic in the background on Hannah's side of the call. Then, car horns. The sounds of a city refusing to cooperate. The train stopped running, Hannah explained. The buses are delayed too. Lily was silent for a moment. Then she asked the question every parent dreads. Are you stuck? Hannah laughed softly, though exhaustion lingered beneath it. A little. Do you need help? The innocence in her voice nearly made me smile. Hannah laughed again. This time it sounded closer to tears. I think everybody needs help sometimes. Something about that sentence settled heavily in the silence. I found myself staring at the rain beyond the glass. The city looked enormous. Yet somehow the distance between three strangers felt surprisingly small. Mommy? Lily asked again. Yes. The nice man stayed with me. Hannah's voice softened immediately. I know. Another pause followed. Then Hannah spoke directly to me for the first time since the calls merged. Gabriel. Yes. Thank you. The sincerity caught me off guard. I was not accustomed to gratitude, respect, fear, loyalty. Those things I understood. Gratitude felt different. You do not need to thank me. Ido. Her voice remained calm. You stayed. The same words Lily had used earlier. Strange how two people could say the exact same thing and somehow make it matter even more the second time. Silence followed. Then my phone vibrated. A new message appeared from one of my people. Transportation available. Driver nearby. 10 minutes. I looked at the message for several seconds. Then I made a decision. Hannah. Yes. Where are you? Immediate caution entered her voice. Why? Sensible woman. I respected that. Because I can get you home. Silence. Then another silence. The kind filled with hesitation. I do not even know you. Fair. For all I know, you could be dangerous. Lily gasped dramatically. Mommy. I laughed despite myself. Hannah sounded embarrassed. Sorry. Do not apologize. I looked down at the city below. You should be careful. Another pause followed. Then why are you helping? The question was simple, honest, and surprisingly difficult to answer. Finally I told the truth. Because your daughter called the wrong number. Neither woman spoke. Rain continued tapping against the windows. Somewhere below, Chicago moved through another stormy night. Mommy, Lily whispered. I think we should trust him. Hannah exhaled slowly. Sweetheart, life does not work that way. Maybe sometimes it does. The answer sounded so much like hope that none of us spoke afterward. Finally Hannah sighed. What exactly are you offering? A ride home. Nothing else. Nothing else. Another pause. Then she laughed softly. You sound disappointed. I am many things. A smile touched my face. Disappointed is not one of them. For the first time that night, Hannah laughed without exhaustion behind it. A genuine laugh. Warm. Real. Unexpectedly beautiful. Then she finally said the words that changed everything. Okay. I straightened. Okay. Okay. Another small laugh followed. But if this turns out to be a terrible idea, I am blaming Lily. The little girl cheered so loudly I had to pull the phone away from my ear. And for the first time all evening, I realized I was looking forward to meeting someone I had never seen. 10 minutes later I was standing in the private elevator descending from my penthouse toward the parking garage below. Rain still covered the city, though the storm was beginning to weaken. My phone remained connected to Lily. She had spent the last several minutes describing her dream bedroom in extraordinary detail. Apparently it required a reading corner, 300 books, and a cat named Pancake. Why Pancake? I asked. Because everybody names cats serious things. I smiled. That is a surprisingly strong argument. The elevator doors opened. My driver, Michael, was already waiting beside a black sedan. Good evening, sir. I need a pickup. Already arranged. He handed me a tablet displaying a map. Hannah's location flashed on the screen. A bus stop nearly 5 miles from her apartment. Weather delays? I asked. Michael nodded. Most of the city is backed up. I looked at the map. Then I looked toward the rain beyond the garage entrance. I will handle this one personally. Michael blinked. Personally. I took the keys from his hand. That is what I said. Confusion crossed his face, but years of working for me had taught him not to argue. Of course, sir. A few minutes later I was driving through the rain-soaked streets of Chicago. Lily remained on speakerphone. Are you really coming? She asked for the 5th time. Yes. Like actually coming? That is generally how driving somewhere works. She laughed. Mommy is not going to believe this. To be fair, neither did I. 40 minutes earlier I had planned to spend the evening alone. Now I was crossing the city because a little girl dialed one incorrect number. Life had a strange sense of humor. Eventually I reached the location marked on the map. A covered bus shelter stood beneath a flickering streetlight. Several people waited there. One of them immediately caught my attention. A woman holding a canvas bookstore tote bag against her shoulder. Dark blonde hair slightly damp from the rain. Tired eyes. Protective posture. She looked exactly how Lily had described her. Hannah Carter. For a moment I simply watched through the windshield. Not because I doubted her identity. Because something about the scene felt unexpectedly ordinary. She was not surrounded by wealth. Not connected to power. She was simply a mother trying to get home to her daughter. I parked and stepped out into the rain. Hannah noticed me immediately. Caution appeared in her eyes. Understandable. A stranger approaching in the middle of a storm was not exactly comforting. I stopped several feet away. Hannah. She nodded slowly. Gabriel. Hearing my name in her voice felt strange. Familiar somehow despite meeting only minutes ago. Your daughter has excellent negotiation skills. To my surprise, Hannah laughed. That sounds like Lily. The tension eased slightly. She has been worried about you. Hannah's expression softened instantly. I know. She looked down at her phone. She called me 3 times before she called you. I am honored to be 4th on the list. Another laugh escaped her. Warmer this time. Real. Then her eyes met mine properly for the first time. Curiosity replaced caution. You really drove across the city because my daughter called the wrong number? Rain fell around us. Traffic moved through the wet streets behind me. For a second I considered giving a complicated answer. Instead I told the truth. No. Hannah raised an eyebrow. No. I smiled slightly. I drove across the city because she asked me to stay. For a moment Hannah simply stared at me. Rain fell steadily around us while traffic moved through the city behind the bus shelter. My answer seemed to catch her off guard. Maybe because it was honest. Maybe because it was not the kind of answer she expected from a stranger. She has that effect on people, Hannah said softly. A smile touched her face. At least on good people. I laughed. I am not sure she has enough information to make that judgment. Children usually know more than adults give them credit for. There was something about the way she said it that made me believe her. We stood there for another second before I opened the passenger door. Your daughter is waiting. That immediately settled the debate. Hannah climbed into the car without another argument. The drive across Chicago felt strangely easy. Rain tapped softly against the windshield. Streetlights reflected across wet pavement. Hannah sat beside me holding her phone in both hands. Every few minutes she checked it. Not because she expected a message. Because she was counting the minutes until she could see Lily again. She talks a lot, I said. Hannah laughed. You noticed. I learned about books, cats, pancakes, and at least 3 different playgrounds. Then she likes you.
Ich glänzte her.
Is that how it works? Pretty much. Another comfortable silence settled between us. Unexpectedly comfortable. Finally Hannah looked toward me. So what do you actually do? There it was. The question I knew would come eventually. I watched the road ahead. Business. Her immediate laugh told me exactly what she thought of that answer. That is not an answer. Technically, it is. Technically. The amusement in her voice surprised me. Most people became intimidated around me once they learned who I was. Hannah did not seem impressed at all. Somehow that felt refreshing. And what about you? I asked. Besides managing a bookstore and raising a future lawyer? Hannah smiled. I survive on coffee and optimism. A dangerous combination. It has worked so far. We continued talking until the city slowly gave way to quieter residential streets. Eventually Hannah pointed toward a brick apartment building near the corner. The moment the car stopped, she was already reaching for the door handle. Then she hesitated. Gabriel. Yes. Emotion flickered briefly across her face. Thank you. The words sounded different now. Deeper. More personal. Before I could respond, she was already hurrying toward the entrance. I remained in the car. Watching. Waiting. Not because I needed confirmation. Because somehow I wanted to see the ending. A minute later a second-floor apartment window illuminated. Then another. Through partially open curtains I caught a glimpse of movement. A little girl launching herself toward her mother. Tiny arms. Big emotions. Relief so obvious it could be seen from the street. I smiled before I even realized I was doing it. My phone vibrated. A video call request. Lily. I answered. Her face immediately filled the screen. You did it, she announced. Apparently. Hannah appeared beside her, still laughing. She insists on thanking you personally. Several times, Hannah added. At least 20. 23, Lily corrected. I counted. I shook my head. That sounds accurate. Then Lily suddenly became serious. Can I ask you one more question? Sure. Her bright eyes studied me carefully through the screen. Why do you sound lonely? The question hit harder than any business negotiation I had ever faced. Harder than any threat. Harder than any accusation. For several seconds I could not answer. Because the truth was that nobody had ever asked me that before. And judging by the look on Hannah's face, she was waiting for the answer too. For several seconds I could not answer. The video call remained silent except for the soft sounds of Hannah moving around the apartment and Lily watching me with complete sincerity. She had not asked the question to be rude. She had asked because children notice things adults ignore. Why do you sound lonely? I looked at the screen. Then I looked away. Chicago stretched beyond the windshield. Rain continued sliding across the glass. Thousands of lights glowed throughout the city. Yet none of them felt particularly close. That is a very big question. Lily nodded seriously. I know. Hannah tried to rescue me. Sweetheart, you do not have to ask people things like that. Why not? Lily looked genuinely confused. Because sometimes questions are personal. Lily thought about that. Then she looked back at me. Do you want me to take it back? The innocence in her voice almost made me laugh. No.
Ismila Tsufli.
You can keep it. Silence followed. Then I finally answered. Maybe I sound lonely because I spend too much time working. Lily immediately shook her head. Mommy works a lot. Hannah pointed toward herself. I feel attacked. Lily ignored her completely. You still sound lonelier. I laughed despite myself. Hannah covered her face, clearly trying not to laugh too. The conversation should have felt ridiculous. Instead it felt strangely comfortable. Like sitting at a table with people who expected honesty. What do you do when you are sad? Lily asked. I work. That sounds terrible. Hannah actually laughed out loud this time. She is not wrong. I shook my head. I am beginning to understand who runs this household. Me, Lily said proudly. Definitely her, Hannah agreed. Something warm settled in my chest. A feeling I could not remember experiencing in years. The call continued for another 20 minutes. Lily showed me drawings. Hannah showed me the cat from downstairs that kept visiting their apartment window. At some point the conversation stopped feeling like a conversation between strangers. Started feeling familiar. Dangerous territory. Familiarity always was. Eventually Hannah glanced at the clock. Bedtime. Lily groaned dramatically. But I am busy. You have school tomorrow. School is always tomorrow. Hannah raised an eyebrow. Nice try. Lily sighed as if carrying the burden of the entire world. Then she looked at me. Will I ever talk to you again? The question surprised me. Before I could answer, Hannah looked embarrassed. You do not have to answer that. But I found myself considering it anyway. The logical answer was no. This entire situation had begun because of a wrong number. It should end the same way. Yet when I looked at Lily's hopeful face, the word refused to come. Maybe. Her smile appeared instantly. Really? Maybe. Hannah shook her head, smiling despite herself. You just made her weak. Good. The word came out quieter than I intended. Lily finally disappeared toward her bedroom after demanding at least 6 separate goodbyes. The moment she was gone, the atmosphere changed slightly. Not awkward. Just different. Quieter. Hannah sat on the couch holding her phone. You are good with her. I looked down. I am not sure anyone has ever said that before. Then they were not paying attention. The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then Hannah smiled softly. For what it is worth, Gabriel, I am glad she called the wrong number. Something shifted inside me when she said it. Something I had spent years keeping locked away. Before I could find the right response, my phone vibrated. A message appeared on the screen. The sender was one of my senior associates. The subject line contained only 4 words. We need to talk. Immediately, the warmth of the evening began to fade. The message stayed on my screen long after I read it. We need to talk. Most people would have seen 4 ordinary words. I knew better. In my world, messages like that rarely arrived without a reason. I looked back toward the video call. Hannah was watching me now. Not suspiciously. Just carefully. Everything okay? She asked. I considered giving a simple answer. Instead I nodded. Work. A faint smile appeared on her face. The mysterious business job again? I laughed softly. Something like that. She seemed ready to ask another question but stopped herself. Smart. Most people push too hard. Hannah respected boundaries even when curiosity tempted her. You should probably take the call. Probably. Neither of us moved immediately. Strange. 24 hours ago, neither of us existed in the other's life. Now saying goodnight felt unexpectedly difficult. Finally, Hannah smiled. Thank you again. You already said that. I know. Her expression softened. I still mean it. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then a sleepy voice echoed from somewhere off camera. Mommy. Hannah looked over her shoulder. I am coming. She stood. Good night, Gabriel. Good night, Hannah. The call ended. Silence returned to the car. The city looked different somehow. Not because Chicago had changed. Because I had. I stared at the dark screen for several seconds before dialing the number from the message. The call connected immediately. Gabriel. What is so important? My associate hesitated. The board meeting tomorrow. I closed my eyes. Of course. The endless cycle of responsibilities. Decisions. Expectations. The life I had spent years building. Handle it. Without you. Without me. Silence followed. That is not like you. Maybe not. I looked toward the apartment building where Hannah and Lily lived. Warm light still glowed through one of the second-floor windows. Perhaps I am trying something different. The conversation ended shortly afterward. I drove home through quiet streets and watched dawn begin to rise beyond the skyline. For the first time in years, I ignored half the meetings scheduled on my calendar. I ignored reports. I ignored messages. Instead, I found myself thinking about a little girl who wanted a cat named Pancake and a mother who survived on coffee and optimism. 3 months passed. Spring arrived. The rain disappeared. Trees turned green. Chicago seemed brighter. Life continued moving forward. Yet some things changed. Every week I received a drawing from Lily. Every week I received a polite message from Hannah apologizing for Lily's enthusiasm. Every week I found myself smiling at both. Then one Saturday afternoon my phone rang. Lily. I answered immediately. Hello. Emergency. I sat up straight. What happened? Mommy says we cannot buy Pancake. Relief flooded through me. The cat. Yes. I laughed. That is not an emergency. It is to Pancake. Hannah's laughter appeared in the background. Familiar now. Comfortable. Homelike. Do not encourage her, Hannah said. I make no promises. More laughter followed. Warm laughter. Real laughter. The kind that fills empty spaces without asking permission. A week later I found myself standing outside a small independent bookstore. Hannah opened the door and smiled when she saw me. Lily ran forward and wrapped her arms around my waist before I could say a word. You came. The statement sounded simple, yet it carried the same meaning as the first night. You stayed. I looked at Hannah. She looked at me. Neither of us needed to explain what had changed. Some people spend years searching for the right connection. I found mine because a little girl pressed one wrong number. And as Lily slipped her small hand into mine and pulled me toward the bookstore, I realized something important. The call had never been asking for help. It had been offering it.